Of course, is my response to this headline. Of course, there's an alarming rate of PTSD among firefighters because firefighters are among the highest risk professions. Let me point out the high risk professions where PTSD 80% plus is part of the work related experience, sadly, because of their work. It's life or death work. Firefighters, police officers, military service, EMT, ambulance personnel, physicians on the scene, crisis therapists like myself on the scene. These are the first responders after a tragic event or a crisis or a natural disaster. Also, journalists who cover the event, because this makes headlines, and then photojournalists who are literally taking these photos. Can you imagine? These are high risk professions. Also, war correspondents or those correspondents that cover breaking news. This is very difficult work. And so sadly, this comes in light of 2 tragic deaths of firefighters that went in to rescue people. And again, life or death work of a high risk profession. So it's like a no-brainer that post-traumatic stress disorder, post-traumatic stress is a part of their work experience. This is according to, I have US-based research, but I feel like it translates. And again, we're talking about South Korea, my home country. That is why I'm vested. I want to see the trajectory of mental health, mental illness treatment, turned upside down, a new infrastructure built. So when I see the response to a survey that they did in 2023, oh my goodness, this is surprising. How is it surprising when, again, firefighters, they're fighting fires, right? And rescuing people from death. Then it is a no-brainer that PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, is a normal part of this job. And it's about what can you do to manage that, not prevention. Now, there's always prevention in just your symptoms exacerbating, but just know when you're in a high-risk profession like this, that trauma is part of the experience. It's called a work-related experience for professions like this. PSPs, public safety personnel. Here's what I hope to see. Now, I see that in their article that it's all hands on deck. Let's do something. That's always the hope. I'm very hopeful and I'm seeing such a movement. However, what does that look like? Okay, here's what it looks like in the US, or what I know that would be, what I would hope translate in Korea. Now, culturally, it's different. They're not so much about dialogue, but you got to work at it. If we need these first responders in our world, we need them in South Korea to do their jobs, right? Number 1 would be that fostering, promoting belongingness in the peer community, peer support. It's a no-brainer. When you're in this high-risk profession, what helps you? Being around and talking with other people in the same field. My goodness, what are we experiencing? You may love this job, but it's difficult. But when you have other people who are doing the job with you, police officers, firefighters, ambulance personnel, EMTs who are trying to rescue these people, right, in ambulances, physicians treating these people, therapists like me on the scene, dealing with crisis intervention, military service, photojournalists, journalists, the peer matters. In fact, suicidal ideation, so thoughts of suicide, suicidality, which also includes that, attempted suicide, making suicide plans, can stem and be exacerbated because of loneliness when you're like, okay, I just went through something horrific. I have no one to talk to. That's generally what happens to just human nature. We crawl into ourselves. But the first line of treatment is going, okay, I have peers who do the same job with me, people that were in this crisis event with me or in this building with me that was burning, in flames, and just painting a picture, then depend on those peers. So foster, promote dialogues. It's not easy, but it gets easier as you talk about it. And this camaraderie and belongingness is so critical to your mental health. 2, okay, so in our field, we have this crisis intervention immediately post-event. It's called, stress debriefing, critical incident stress debriefing. Very, very essential. So after a tragic event like this, for instance, the Itaewon Crush, Halloween Crush, you go immediately and debrief with the first responders, whether it's your own station, police station, firefighting station, EMTs, physicians, go together immediately and debrief. Okay, what just happened? What did we just see? What was it like? Oh my goodness, we need to talk about it. How are you doing? Debrief from that incident. You got to talk about it immediately. That is a critical part, hence critical incident stress debriefing, essential. Again, more dialogue. Not easy when it comes to our Asian, our Korean culture, but you could practice it. And so essential. Again, you want these first responders in our world, in our country, doing their jobs, heroic work, right? And then lastly, if you're going to talk about mental health resources, we'll make them easily accessible, affordable, reachable there. Not like, oh, I got to find a therapist. How do I find a psychiatrist? How do I find a psychologist? Get the directories in these workplaces where people could look them up and go, okay, there's one in my area. They're one that does telehealth, teletherapy, one that I can go to right down the street. Make it easily accessible. I hear from many people, the hard part about getting treatment or going to therapy is they don't know where to start. They don't know where it is. It's not there. Then they look at it and they can't find a directory of therapists or, personnel, people to help you in times of crisis. That is something that you can do based on research. Look it up, put this together, band together, and put together a directory of mental health resources and support that's easily there for everybody in this field. Anybody everywhere, but particularly in this field where it's a high risk profession. So I hope that helps. I saw the article, I just went, let's see what they're gonna say. But it's almost like, oh my goodness, it's an alarming rate of PTSD. What? Again, research, high risk profession like firefighters. PTSD is part of the everyday work-related experience. Not every day, all day, but just know that trauma is part of that experience. So it's about navigating through it, preventing exacerbation of those symptoms through those three things that I outlined: peer support, the critical incident stress debriefing immediately after an event. Talk about it. Keep talking about it. Continue to check in. Have these consistent check-ins. It doesn't have to be every day, but it could be weekly, emails, whatever that is, because it was a horrific event that they experienced or were there first responding. And then lastly, those mental health directories of personnel and therapists and psychiatrists and psychologists and physicians that can help you when you need it.